Hello, today I am going to be doing my June wrap up and my Summerween / July TBR. I want to go ahead and start with my June wrap up. Now, I started this month with 10 books on my TBR, knowing that I wasn't going to read all 10 books, but I did make some progress in a lot of the books. Mama, thank you. I want to go ahead and start with my DNFs. I had 2 DNFs, and I think we're gonna be surprised. Now, let me first explain my DNF process. Because I have a toddler and I'm in my 3rd trimester of pregnancy number 2, I don't have a lot of time to read. Plus, my toddler is at home with me all the time. So, because I don't have a lot of time to read, my reading time is very sacred. If I am not really liking or loving a book and I'm pretty far into the book, I DNF it. I don't want to be wasting my time with something that's mediocre or just okay, or even bad. So I DNF books pretty easily. So the first book I DNF'd was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I got this much through the book. I was on page 38 and I couldn't do it anymore. This book follows a young girl, forgot what her name is, Esperanza. It's told in a series of vignettes, which are really short moments in time following this young girl. And she seems to be anywhere from the ages of 8 to 12. I thought that this was going to be so good, super cute, coming of age book about a Hispanic girl, but I wasn't enjoying the style. I thought character was pretty cute, but because of the short vignette style of writing, I wasn't able to form those relationships with the characters to care about what was happening to them at all. I understand that it was because it was being written from the perspective of a young girl, almost as if they were diary entries without being diary entries. I just don't think that is a style that is for me. So that is why this book was DNF'd. I didn't care enough about the characters to really enjoy what was happening. So I DNF'd this after trying it for about 2 days and getting only 38 pages into it. The second book that I DNF'd was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Now, if you guys watched my previous video where I introduced why I was adding this to my TBR, you'll know that I started this book 6 months ago and forgot about it. Picked it back up and I realized why I forgot about it. I got this far into the book. I was on page 90, chapter 10, and I couldn't do it anymore. This is told in dual perspectives and dual timelines. Tate Collins and Miles Archer. Tate moves in with her brother, who has a friend named Miles, and Tate immediately falls in love with Miles. That's present day. The other timeline is Miles when he was younger and him being in love with his stepsister. So it was kind of weird. That was one reason why I didn't really enjoy it. And then another reason why I DNF'd with this was because Tate and her obsession with Miles was kind of irritating. The fact that every time she was in Miles's presence, she would get annoyed if he wasn't paying attention to her, or she was so fixated on Miles's gaze towards her that it was so annoying that she had literally nothing else to talk about except, is Miles thinking about me? Is he looking at me? What outfit should I wear? It was getting to be too much. It felt like it was written by a high schooler, and I was kind of disappointed because this is the only other Colleen Hoover book that I read besides Verity. So I'm not too excited to get into any other Colleen Hoover books at the moment, but that's why this book was DNF. Now, let's get to the 2 books that I did finish this month, and I was kind of excited about one of them and disappointed by it, and then really conflicted about the other one. The first one was The Haunting by Natasha Preston. I saw this in Target a long time ago, several years ago, probably right when it was published, and it seemed really intriguing. The main character, Penny, breaks up with her boyfriend because her boyfriend's father was convicted of being a serial killer and murdering a whole bunch of teenagers in their town. Now, a year later, more murders start happening, and everybody suspects it to be her ex-boyfriend. So there's that whole investigation going on. This book was really annoying the entire time. But I kept picking it back up because it was so fast paced and I really wanted to know what was happening. The teenagers that were in this book behaved like stereotypical teenagers do in horror or thriller movies. They investigate the weird sounds, they try to track down the killer themselves, they are in the wrong place at the wrong time all the time. It was very annoying. This is very clearly a YA thriller. Like, people died and like, yeah, you could like, the blood was being described and everything, but because of like the consequences or lack thereof consequences for their stupid behavior, it was very unrealistic. I was kind of upset with the fact, I don't want to spoil it. Anyway, I was disappointed with the ending, extremely disappointed with the ending. So a plot arc goes like this. We have our exposition, our rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement. Typically, most books will finish right at the base of the denouement. Thriller books, however, will kind of only really go just past the climax. This book, however, ended right at the climax. There was no falling action, there was no resolution. I felt completely like I was hanging there. It almost felt as if the author was relieved to get to the climax of this book and then just didn't want to write a conclusion for it. So I was very disappointed in how this one ended. I think I gave it 2 stars because I was not really enjoying it, but still kind of wanted to know how it ended and then was disappointed by the ending. So I wished I had DNF'd this. So it will also be going in my unhaul pile. Now, the book that I finished and loved and am completely conflicted by is Alchemized by Sin-Lin Yu. It took me a very long time to read this book because although it looks like it's a 700-page book, it's actually 1,024 pages. It is a tome and the words are super tiny. And I feel like this book deserves 3 separate ratings. There are 3 different parts to this book and each part is drastically different. Now, there is another book by this author called Manacled, I believe, and I have not read it. I probably will read it eventually, but not anytime soon because I need time to digest this book. It was so good. Like I said, it was conflicting. Check your trigger warnings. I am going to do a complete review of this book in a separate video. It will have spoilers in it, but for this video, I will do a spoiler-free version. Part 1, we are introduced to Helena. Do we know her last name? Helena Marino. And sorry, the characters' names slipped my mind as soon as I finished the book. I finished this book like 2 days ago. Anyway, we are introduced to Helena Marino, and she wakes up in a vat of goo with no memories whatsoever. She almost doesn't even remember her name. They do a bunch of experiments on her to try to get her memory back to as normal as possible. They find out that she was a member of the rebel community before the rebel community was completely wiped out, and she is the only surviving member. They send her to live with Farron, and Farron is our other main character, and Farron is a member of the corrupt government, and he is supposedly the best person to try to recapture all of her missing memories, to try to figure out why she was so important in order to keep alive and in a vat of goo for so long. And in part 1, we follow Helena as she is kept in Farron's household as a prisoner, trying to regain her memories. In part 2, we are thrown back in time before the rebel community was completely wiped out, and we kind of see the escalation to when we get to the beginning of part 1. So it's sort of told in an in media res perspective. Part 2, pacing started to slow down. I wasn't getting very into it. The relationships and the connections between the characters were very repetitive and sometimes annoying, and it was the longest part in the book. So part 1, I would probably rate maybe a 3 out of 5 stars, only because The world building and the magic building did take some time to get used to. I had to listen to part 1 on audiobook just because it was so dense. The world building and the magic building, it was so completely different from everything that I was used to. Part 2, I physically read. Kind of wish that I listened to the audiobook for it because it was slow and repetitive. It was the war part, but also because we're still following Helena, who isn't a direct part of the fighting and the action, it felt kind of slow. Part 3, however, 5 out of 5 stars. It was flawless. We're back at the end of part 1 of the timeline, and everything starts wrapping up. We're starting to understand miscommunications and gaps in relationships and gaps in timelines, and it all starts coming together. And I kind of, after I finished part 3, I wanted to go back and reread part 1 because, I mean, I think that knowing all of the information from part 3 and going back to reread part 1, it would have given me a completely different feeling. So I might eventually do that. But overall, if I were to average out all of those, it'd probably be a 3.5, 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I really recommend it. Check your trigger warnings before you read it though, because it is not for the faint of heart. This is not a light-hearted fantasy. The romance in it is not the focus of this book. I wouldn't even consider it a romantasy because the romance part is not even the biggest part of this. It's all about being forced to do things that you wouldn't normally do and having to deal with the consequences of those outcomes. Anyway, 3.5 or 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it. And this is the only book that I finished this month that I will be keeping and putting back on my bookshelves. Now let's get to the books that I made progress in this month. And that would be The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. At the beginning of June, when I added this to my TBR, I had only read 1 chapter, and this is the prequel to the Throne of Glass series. It's a series of novellas from when Selena Sardothien was a assassin for the Assassin's Guild. And I was really, really excited to get into this because I was like, finally, I'm going to see her slit some throats, be a cutthroat. And I still haven't really seen her do that because I've read the first 2 novellas within this book, and she still just kind of seems like a hero. And I wanted to kind of see the gray area main character where she kills bad guys. When I finish this, I'll give it a big review. I don't find her to be a believable assassin. And I think it's why I'm struggling to get through this book so much. I'm still going to try. I'm adding it to my July TBR because I do want to finish it and get back into finishing the Throne of Glass series. But my hopes aren't high for this book. The next book that I started and have made some progress in is Pretty Things by Janelle Brown. And this one has been on my TBR for several years. Found it in Target, read the back, seemed great. It is from the perspective of 2 separate women. One is Nina and the other one is Vanessa. They come from vastly different backgrounds. Nina grew up very poor with her single mother. Her mother was into stealing and credit card theft, was in and out of jail throughout Nina's childhood. And Nina eventually grew up to become the exact same way. Vanessa, on the other hand, is very privileged and very rich, and their lives collide. Nina tries to do a heist on Vanessa's house or mansion or vacation home. I don't really remember. But I'm listening to the audiobook of this, so I don't actually know how far into. I think I'm on chapter 8, actually. Yeah. So I am this far into the book. It's pretty good. The audiobook goes by pretty quickly, so I will be moving this over to my July TBR to try to finish it. So far, so good. The next book I had started prior to my June TBR, but I actually made no progress in. I didn't feel like picking it back up, but I will be moving it to my July TBR because it fits one of the Summerween prompts, and that is The Family Experiment. I have gotten 44 pages into this book. I still really want to read it. I think the concept is really interesting. I think I just need to find the right time to sit down and read it when I'm not sucked into either of these books. But this is a dystopian novel set in a time when having and raising your own children is financially impossible. So a company has created a game show where you can virtually raise a child. And there are, I believe, 12 family contestants, and they compete for 9 months with a live audience where they have to raise a child. And the winning couple at the end, I believe, gets to keep their child or take the remaining money that they were given and have their own child. But a lot of the couples are extremely corrupt and just in it for either the fame or the money. And it's so interesting. And I really kind of just want to start over and read the whole thing again, because I want to really focus on it. But again, this is one of the books that I will be adding to my July TBR. Now, the 3 books that were on my TBR that I never got to are The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst, The Lying Game by Ruth Ware, and Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Now, these 3 books, I'm not going to get into what they're about. If you want to learn what they're about, you can either look them up or you can read. Nope. You can either look them up or you can go watch my June TBR video. But these are going to be going back on my TBR shelf for future months. I didn't have the time to get to them this month. I knew I wasn't going to read 10 books this month. So these are just the ones that didn't get chosen, and that is okay. Okay, so that is it for my June wrap up. I would like to very quickly get into my Summerween/July TBR. Summerween is hosted by Gabby Reeds, and I'll link her channel down below with her Summerween announcement video, and you guys can go check it out. She also has an Instagram where she posts daily updates. She posts stories and TBRs. There are 5 reading prompts, and there are 4, yeah, I think there are 4 like extra prompts that aren't reading related at all. Now, because reading is not something that I can do very quickly with my lifestyle, I'm going to be extending this week-long reading vlog into my entire month of July. So my entire month of July is going to be my Summerween. And that is me either cheating or just bending the rules a little bit. But that is a-okay. So the first prompt is to read a book in the dark. And the book that I have chosen to do that would be The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. Typically, the only times that I get to read are at night after my daughter goes to bed. So this is the book that I'm probably going to be picking up first before all of the other ones. So I'll be reading this in bed at night. So this will count as my reading a book in the dark. The second reading prompt is to read a horror or a thriller, and I am going to be adding Pretty Things to that prompt. This counts as a thriller because of all of the high stakes scenarios that go on within it. It doesn't count as a horror at all, but it does count as a thriller. So I'm going to be filling this book into that reading prompt. The third prompt is a new to you author, and I have chosen to do Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. And the reason that I actually chose this book is because the audiobook was available on Libby. So, and because this is supposed to be like in the form of a podcast, I thought listening to it would be perfect. So I've picked this up on Libby and am going to listen to it. But this follows a characters, Lucy and Savvy. And Lucy and Savvy were best friends. They were inseparable, and they were like the town's jewel golden girls. And one day, who is it? Lucy appears out of nowhere covered in Savvy's blood and has no memory as to how Savvy's blood got all over her. And the entire town think that Lucy killed Savvy. And so now Lucy has teamed up with Ben Owens who is a podcaster, who's like a true crime podcaster, and they are going to investigate together what actually happened to her best friend, even if that means she killed her best friend herself. So I'm excited to pick this one up in the form of an audiobook. So as soon as my audiobook for Pretty Things is over, this one is going to take its place. The fourth reading prompt is a book with pink on the cover, and that is the prompt that the family experiment fills. And I don't know if you guys can see, but the little girl in the middle, she actually has pink shoes and a pink shirt. So that is the pink on the cover. And the last reading prompt is to read a book that is less than 250 pages. And I have chosen A Court of Frost and Starlight, which is the fourth book in the ACOTAR series. I am not looking forward to this book at all. I have loved every single ACOTAR book so far. Every book I've given 5 stars to. And I haven't listened to or read or heard any reviews of this book, but just based on the sheer size difference of this book compared to others, I know this is just going to be a filler book. She probably just needed to publish a book to meet deadlines, to meet publication deadlines. I'm not excited for this one. Plus the font is pretty like decent size. So like this book is 233 pages. It's not going to take me that long to get into. Plus the audiobook for A Court of Silver Flames has just become available for me on Libby. So I want to try to get through this and the other 2 audiobooks as quickly as possible, so that way I can listen to as much of the 5th book in the ACOTAR series, because the 6th one comes out right before my birthday in October. And I want to have those 5 things, and I want to have the 5th ACOTAR book read before that one comes out. Anyway, that was my June wrap up and my July/Summerween TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment down below if you have read any of these books, what your thoughts were on them. Let me know if you're upset at all of the books that I'm going to be getting rid of or DNFing. And anyway, have a good day.